This is City Pulse Newsmakers, a weekly look at the issues and the people behind them in Greater Lansing. Brought to you by City Pulse, Lansing's weekly alternative newspaper. And now, here's your host, City Pulse publisher, Burl Schwartz.
Good morning. Our topic today is what's the future of the Lansing Board of Water and Light? Our guests are former Commissioner Joe Graves Jr. is going to join us later in the show, and right now, former Mayor of Lansing, David Hollister. David, welcome back to City Pulse.
Thank you.
Let's start with Mayor Bernero's three charter amendment proposals, and we're showing those to our readers right now on the screen. But one would limit how much general managers could be paid and other city officials. A second would require or create rather an inspector general to report directly to the mayor to oversee, to report to him on the Lansing Board of Water and Light. And then the third would essentially put the legal responsibility for BWL in the city attorney's office. Let's start with the inspector general proposal. What are your thoughts on that?
I've got reservations about it. It's never been alleged that the board has been mismanaged as far as fiscal accountability. Mm-hmm. And I think you have to be very careful. This is a unique asset to the region. It's probably one of the city's major assets. It's clearly one of its major revenue sources. I mean, when I was mayor, we were getting $7 to $8 million a year in payment in lieu of taxes. That's over 20, I think it's close to 25 million now if you take the maintenance of the fire plugs that have been shifted to them. So you've got to be very careful how you handle this. You're in the process of regionalizing by bringing non-voting members from Delta and East Lansing and then the region. I would want to get them engaged. They officially engage in July and go over the citizens report and with the new members on the board, thoughtfully review and see if the recommendations have been implemented. But I would be very cautious and go slow, because the last thing you want is for the regional leaders, those outside the city, to think that this is becoming politicized, that it's becoming an agent of the mayor. I worked on the Charter Commission back when it was last adopted. There was a citizens group, and I was part of that. When I was mayor, I looked at the Board and Water Light from multiple angles, including the potential sale. We were approached by a representative from a utility outside the state that expressed interest, and I looked at that and concluded that at that time it wasn't worth the risk that was involved, because we were negotiating with General Motors and there were so many things going on. And the low cost of our utilities is one of our major selling points. So I'm very reluctant to do anything that would politicize. I think setting a cap politically, saleable, I mean, it's easy to put a cap on these. But this is a very unique industry, and you need skilled and talented people. I don't mind putting a limit on your contracts, maybe per year, 2-year limits, but I'd be very cautious about putting a dollar cap on it or whatever. So, I think he's got, I think the mayor wants to show that he's being responsible and a good steward, but he's got to be careful how he's perceived. And he can't let this asset be soiled by the petty city hall politics that I am so familiar with.
Right. Well, what about the third proposal to essentially make a special assistant city attorney the lawyer for BWL?
I'm not as concerned about that. I think you want a coherent legal strategy with the city. Reporting, it really depends on how it's implemented. I would assume that if I were the city attorney or the attorney for the Board of Water and Light, and the mayor's office or the city attorney called and asked me to be in a meeting, I would probably be there. That's just the reality of things. Moving her office or making it more accountable. Again, to what end? To what end? We got some serious infrastructure issues we got to deal with. We've got restoration of the reputation to deal with. You've got retirement of a number of frontline employees, but middle management people. So it's a very fragile period right now, and I would be very, very cautious. And I haven't decided if I would support any one of those three proposals yet.
Would you encourage Mayor Bernero at this point to slow down, not try to put these on the May ballot?
I've always told him to slow down. I was one of his biggest supporters, but
right.
He tends to not listen to some of my advice. But yes, I would tell him to slow down. Be thoughtful, be deliberative, be transparent, put up the standards that you want to see met. Give this new guy that's acting director a chance. Let the board set up a process for selecting a permanent replacement, and get the new members in place. They get, take a year or two. Take that citizens group, an excellent group, great study. You got the Public Service Commission endorsing that study.
Mm-hmm.
Evaluate it, and move from there. There's no hurry. But the last thing we need is for this to be politicized. We're in a very unique period in time with FRIB, the facility for rare isotope beams, coming online, new high-tech industry growing around here, the insurance industry. We got some real vitality. We got a growth potential, and cheap energy is one of our assets. I wouldn't want to do anything that would undermine people's confidence and the region's ability to nurture and grow this relationship. And this is kind of the third rail of regional discussions. And I think it's time to get beyond the rhetoric on regionalism and to begin taking it more serious, whether it's consolidation of police and fire, the units doing things more regional, sharing of department heads. There's things we should be doing. They've made some small incremental steps, but the bringing the two new members on is a good thing. I would make them voting members over time. But this is a regional asset, should be treated as one. Anything that's perceived to be making it part of the mayor's administration will be opposed by business and community leaders and will undermine the effectiveness of the operation.
So he's in for a big fight.
I don't know. It's not on everybody's number one list of issues to fight about, but it's one that people are skeptical. You're going to have to prove it. The burden will be on him and his allies to do that. Frankly, I think we should be looking thoughtfully at the potential sale as an option.
I wanted to visit that with you because there are people who say this is really where this is leading, that the mayor wants to get more control over BWL. People say one step is to get more money out of BWL for the city and then down the road sell it. Do you think that is that possibly what's going on here? A long-term strategy to sell it?
Strategy? City Hall? Long-term? Oxymoron, but no, I don't think so. I do think that the fiscal health team that I'm chairing, which is a community group of business and civic leaders that the mayor's asked to look at this long-term legacy cost issue in healthcare and retirement and infrastructure and some of the issues that are looming out there in the future that are just horrendous financial implications. And I think this group is positioned to do a thoughtful review for the mayor and for the region. And I think it would have much more credibility than anything that would come internal from the city. And it wouldn't cost anything because we're all volunteers, and we could noodle that and make some recommendations. But again, this is a wonderful asset. We've had a 100-year history of excellence. We had a big goof up and a major failing for that storm we had a year ago. It's going to take years to recover that credibility. Regional leaders are watching. They're going to see how these new members are going to be received, and I think we have an opportunity here, a window of opportunity to take a fresh look and not get messed up with kind of internal City Hall politics.
There's kind of an interesting dynamic here because the mayor at least is implying that he doesn't have much faith in the board of commissioners, yet he appointed this board of commissioners.
Right.
What's your reaction to that?
He can remove them. He can replace them.
Right.
He expressed no confidence in Peter, and Peter's gone. He expressed no confidence in any one of those members. They would probably resign. But again, it isn't his tool only. This is a regional asset, and it's uniquely positioned in the charter. And it has semi-autonomy. I mean, these commissioners have the ability to hire the new director. They have the ability to adopt the budget without the city. Now they have to inform the city, they have to engage the city, but they have a special status in the charter. And anything that even remotely looks like it's going to undermine that will be resisted. So it's going to be a delicate period. The mayor can be charming and he can be very engaging and move this thing forward as a regional asset, or he can be seen, as he is sometime, as a bully who wants his way, and he's going to get it one way or the other, and to hell with the regional implications. Moving that to a city cabinet would be a mistake. I think these other proposals haven't demonstrated merit to my satisfaction, and I'll support them. But I really want the fiscal health team to take a look at this and engage and make their assessment, because these are community and civic and business leaders that have no particular dog in the fight, and will give you a fair and honest assessment.
We just have about a minute to go. Did Mayor Bernero screw up by standing behind Peter Lark and then less than a year later deciding that he had done a bad job?
I don't think screw up is the right word. It would seem that he would have acted sooner. But I don't know the dynamics. These are challenging jobs. There was clearly something else going on. I can't believe that just the placement of the city attorney and the board's attorney precipitated the firing. There had to be more going on there. But again, I don't deal with motivation. I don't know what motivates anybody to do anything. Just what's the outcome? How can we make this a better place? How can we make this study work?
So slow down, and of course the May election is going to be influenced by the sales tax turnout as well. So he could have a tough time.
Slow down and bring the regional leaders with you.
Yeah.
When this is done, said and done, it should be a love-in, and all the key community business and political leaders should be standing with the mayor saying, this is the right thing to do. Yeah. You can get that today. There's no consensus.
All right, we're out of time. Lansing Mayor David, former Mayor David Hollister, thanks so much for being on City Pulse. And joining us now is Joe Graves Jr. He's a former commissioner of the BWL and also former chief of staff of our previous guest, David Hollister. Joe, welcome to the show for the first time.
Thank you very much.
Joe, we're going to show again to our viewers the three charter amendment proposals Mayor Bernero has made. I'd like to talk to you about them one at a time. One of them is to create an inspector general reporting directly to the mayor. What are your thoughts on that one?
I don't believe that that's a position that's necessary at all. On two counts. First, I don't believe there should be a position at the board that reports directly to the mayor. From my view, the charter makes the board a separate entity, and they did that to isolate the board from the politics of any given mayor. Mm-hmm. So on that basis alone, I don't think it's necessary. But let's take that a step further. Mm-hmm. I had the opportunity to listen to the mayor at the State of the City address, and he outlined the responsibilities that the OIG would perform. During my tenure on the board, we had an auditor general that reported directly to the board, was hired by the board, was evaluated by the board, and they had no direct relationship with management. The kinds of things that Mayor Bernero outlined for that position, the internal auditor can perform every one of those. They can audit all the processes, they can audit all the management communications, they can audit all the things that the mayor would give to the OIG. I think if you strengthen the internal auditor position and ensure, excuse me, that position is reporting directly to the board, then that becomes an unnecessary position.
What about the proposal to limit how much compensation for a general manager?
I think that's a good idea, but the responsibility for that lies with the board.
Are you concerned, though, about whether you're going to have a harder time attracting talent if it's much less than the previous general managers are being paid?
I think that could be a challenge that the board is going to have to overcome. I mean, obviously, the termination of Peter Lark and the termination of Sandy Novick, that's all public information. For people competing for that position, they're going to be aware of that, and they're going to want some protections. And if they can't get protections on the back end, then they're going to want some protections on the front end, and that's going to cost you.
What about the third proposal, which is to essentially make an assistant city attorney BWL's attorney?
Well, once again, I mean, that's a major conflict of interest. What happens when the board makes a decision? Let's take the payment in lieu of taxes. What happens if the board takes a position and the mayor of the city takes a different position? I mean, who resolves that conflict? Mm-hmm. I don't want to be dependent on the mayor's attorney to interpret the actions that I would take as a board member or as management of the board. Mm-hmm. I think that the board needs its own counsel, and the city, of course, has their own counsel.
Earlier, former Mayor Hollister said we need to look again at selling the Board of Water and Light. He said that he looked at it when he was mayor, but that wasn't the right step then. But as the head of this fiscal review team for the Bernero administration, he thinks that should be reconsidered now. What do you think?
Well, you know, I mean, I think a lot of Dave Hollister, and I do appreciate that he's taken the time to go over the finances for the city. But selling the Board of Water and Light, I think would be a major mistake.
Why?
I mean, well, for one, there are case studies out there, and there's one in particular. My hometown, where I was born, that's Peoria, Illinois. They had a municipal utility approximately the size of the Board of Water and Light. They made a decision to sell that municipal utility to a private concern. As a part of that sales agreement, the private company agreed to cap the rate increases at a certain amount for 5 years. Mm-hmm. Now, at the end of that 5 years, the city no longer had any control over that utility, and the rates for the residential and commercial customers, they quadrupled. And now we're in a place where the city has no control. Mm-hmm. And the private company, their interest is increasing dividends for shareholders. You lose all control, the rates can skyrocket. Over the near term, and I think that's where people focus on. On the near term, the city gets a big pot of cash mm-hmm. that can help them address some of their budget issues. On the long term, I think the residents of the city are harmed.
But in the near term, the city still faces major financial problems because of pensions and other fixed obligations.
You know, there's no question that the city has legacy costs that they're going to have a difficult time addressing. You know, the mayor needs to put his big boy pants on and go to the public and make his business case for increasing revenue. That may be an option that he doesn't like, mm-hmm. but certainly that's an option that he has. And I think he needs to sit down and think about that and let him make his case to the public that he needs to increase revenue. Selling the board and water light ought not be on the table.
The election the mayor wants these amendments on will be May 5th. Is that too soon, do you think, for the public to make a good decision?
I didn't catch the first part of your question.
The election the mayor wants these amendment proposals would be May 5th. That's not very far away.
Correct.
Mayor Hollister just encouraged Mayor Bernero to slow down. What do you think? Should he back off of these now?
He should back off. I mean, I think that the mayor needs to go to the public. He needs to make his case. I think he needs to be really inclusive on this one and discuss this issue with as many people as he can. Mm-hmm. I don't think he needs to rush this ahead as quickly as you're suggesting.
What do you think of how the mayor handled BWL from the ice storm until his decision almost a year later to, in effect, fire Peter Lark?
You know, when Mayor Bernero was a state legislator prior to him becoming mayor, as soon as Mayor Bernero became mayor, he told everyone that would listen that he was going to fire Sandy Novak. Mm-hmm. And this is an area where I think it's a
previous general manager.
Yes, sir. This is an area where it concerns me that we don't have the type of investigative journalism that we once had. We at one point, for example, the State Journal had journalists that covered the Capitol, they covered the city, they covered human services. Mm-hmm. Those kind of positions have gone. So we don't get the type of investigative journalism that we used to get. And the reason I bring that up is because Bernero told everyone that would listen that he was going to terminate Sandy Novak. And he was able to accomplish that through the board. Then here we come with a new general manager, Peter Lark. After the ice storm, the mayor was on record as supporting Peter Lark. A few months down the road, some issues developed where Peter Lark disagreed with the mayor. Shortly after that, the CEO, is terminated. that type of influence, that type of control, I think is inappropriate. And I will remind you that my tenure working with David Hollister, he did not interfere in that way. We selected strong commissioners under his direction. If the problem is that you have some weak commissioners, all of those commissioners are Mayor Vernero's appointments, then he needs to go back and look at the quality of people that he's putting on the board.
So he's essentially trying to have it both ways?
He's trying to have it both ways, and unfortunately, the commissioners that he selected, the commissioners that he sent forward to City Council, he's thrown them under the bus.
Do you
I think that's a shame.
Do you think that the real reason Peter Lark, that Mayor Vernero turned against Peter Lark, has yet to come out?
No, it has come out.
You think it has?
You just asked me earlier about two proposals.
Mm-hmm.
I think Peter disagreed with those proposals, and I think that influences termination.
The public is going to have to vote on this in May. What's your advice?
The public is going to have to vote on this in May if the mayor continues at the pace that he's going. I think that the City Council is going to play a role in when that happens. And at this stage, we don't know what their position is. Mm-hmm. So it could be slowed down.
Would you encourage City Council
I would
to slow it down?
I would encourage City Council to slow this down.
Yeah.
This train is moving much too fast.
What do you think about the board's performance in the last year or so?
Clearly, I think that we have some commissioners that are not as strong as others. I think the mayor should be more thoughtful about the type of people that they're putting on the board. You have some folks that are appointed to the board. I guess my term for them is that they are resume builders. You have other people that you put on the board that actually do the work. They do their studies. They investigate the issues. They sit down with management and they go over what's coming before them. It's a lot of work in being a commissioner. I mean, I did that 2 terms.
But that doesn't he have a point? This is too hard for average people.
No, it's not too hard for average people. And I would remind the mayor that I don't think that he brings necessarily any special expertise to this situation. I think a thoughtful person that does their homework, that studies, that pays attention. Now, you do need someone on the board with accounting and budgeting expertise. You do need people that understand large organizations, but you can also have just regular citizens, just regular John Doe, and if they're willing to do the homework, they can serve.
All right, I'm afraid we're out of time. Joe Grapes Jr., thanks for being on the show. If you're a fan of our Top of the Town contest, we're looking for new category ideas. Please check out that at lansingcitypulse.com. You might win 2 tickets to NCG. Thanks for watching.